A high-value man loses the woman he loves, not because he failed her, but because he became safe. Guided by the shadow of Niccolò Machiavelli, he learns the devastating law of emotional physics. You're searching for a reason. You're looking for a villain. You want to believe she's cruel, or perhaps that you weren't enough. You are wrong on both counts. She didn't stop loving you because you were weak. She stopped because you became predictable. In the court of the heart, as in the courts of Florence, the moment a ruler becomes a sure thing, his subjects begin to look at the horizon. You gave her security, but you killed the tension. You offered her a finished monument when she fell in love with a rising empire. You think loyalty is a contract. Machiavelli knows it is a pulse. And yours? Yours became a flat line. Welcome to the forbidden wisdom. Let us perform the autopsy on your devotion. Click the subscribe button so that you will not miss any of our interesting stories. In 1813, when Machiavelli sat in exile watching the collapse of empires, he noticed a pattern no one else seemed willing to document. The rulers who fell weren't the ones who fought too hard. They were the ones who stopped fighting altogether. They looked at their kingdoms and decided the wars were over. They chose peace. They chose domestic tranquility. They chose to rest, and their subjects watched them rest and began to look elsewhere. This is the prince's paradox. The moment a ruler seeks only peace, he guarantees rebellion. Not because his people are ungrateful, but because motion is the language of power. When a king stops moving, stops expanding, stops fighting for something, he becomes a monument. And monuments don't inspire. They bore. They collect dust. Eventually, they crumble. You did this, not to an empire, but to yourself. There was a moment, you can probably place it exactly if you're honest, when you decided the conquest was complete. The promotion had come through. The apartment was perfect. The relationship was secure. She had already said yes. The battle was won. So you put down your sword and sat on your throne, and you mistook that sitting for peace. What you didn't understand was that she had fallen in love with a man who was climbing, not a man who had climbed. There's a fundamental difference. One is motion, one is arrival, one is direction, one is destination. You became the destination, and destinations don't grow. They just wait for people to leave. So you started optimizing your life for her comfort. Small shifts at first. You cancelled your late nights at the office. Not the work, just the ambition that came with them. You prioritized her preferences over your direction. Friday nights that used to be reserved for your vision became date nights on her terms. Not because she demanded it, but because you had already decided, I've won the game. Now I can be domestic. This is where most men don't see the trap. They think domesticity is the prize. They believe that once a woman stops running from you, the work is done. But Machiavelli understood what you forgot. Women don't fall in love with a rival. They fall in love with direction. They are attracted to the man who is moving towards something greater than himself, something greater than her, something that requires him to keep becoming. The moment you made her the center of your becoming, you disappeared. Not from her life, but from her attention, from her desire, from the part of her nervous system that recognizes a man worth following. She didn't hate you for it. She just stopped watching you. And a love that isn't being watched is a love that dies in silence. You became the safe harbor, and safe harbors are where ships go to rest before they sail away again. You provided exactly what she needed: stability, reliability, presence, and in doing so, you removed the only thing that had made you necessary: your refusal to be satisfied with peace. The paradox is this: The more you tried to secure her love through safety, the more you guaranteed her departure. Because safety, in the hands of a man who has surrendered his ambition, is just another word for stagnation. And no one stays to watch someone slowly disappear. Machiavelli spent years watching princes conduct themselves in front of their courts. He noticed something that the princes themselves never seemed to understand. The moment they revealed everything, they became boring. Not evil, not weak. Boring. There's a difference. Evil is interesting. Weakness is interesting. But predictability is just a waiting room where people sit until something better comes along. He wrote about the power of mystery, not the mystery of deception, but the mystery of incompleteness. A prince who lets you see his calculations loses the moment. A prince who keeps a part of himself hidden, not through cruelty, but through the simple maintenance of his own interior life, remains something worth watching. You destroyed this without even realizing it was valuable. In the beginning, she didn't know you. Your mind was a territory she wanted to explore. What did you think about? What made you angry? What did you want? What were you afraid of? These questions created a kind of psychological hunt. She was chasing something. You were something to pursue. That pursuit was exhilarating for both of you. She felt the thrill of discovery. You felt the significance of being discovered. Then you gave her the map to everything. You started telling her everything you thought before you thought it. You opened your phone. You explained your moods. You justified your reactions. You removed the mystery by turning yourself into a transparent organism she could observe in real time. You thought this was intimacy. You thought it was trust. You thought the greatest gift you could give was total access to yourself. It was the greatest mistake. Because humans are not attracted to completeness. We are attracted to the hunt. We are drawn to gaps. We want the parts of someone we haven't figured out yet. A woman doesn't fall in love with a man she fully understands. She falls in love with a man she's still trying to understand. The moment he becomes solved, the hunt ends. And the hunt is what keeps her coming back. Think about the specific ways you became an open book. You told her about your insecurities immediately, thinking vulnerability would deepen her attraction. Instead, it invited pity. You shared every fear, every doubt, every passing anxiety. You turned yourself into a person who needed to be understood rather than a person who was worth understanding. You explained your decisions before she asked. You justified your time away before she questioned it. You made yourself so comprehensible that she stopped needing to study you. What you didn't understand is that mystery isn't a barrier to intimacy. It's the engine of it. A woman wants to know you, but she wants the knowledge to feel earned. She wants there to be dimensions of you that reveal themselves slowly, sometimes contradicting what she thought she knew. She wants to be perpetually surprised by new corners of your mind. She wants to feel like she still hasn't quite figured you out. You gave her the opposite. You became a book she read all the way through on the first day. Every page was familiar. Every plot turn was expected. So she put the book down. Not because it was bad, but because she had finished it. And you don't reread a finished book. You just move on to the next one. The death of mystery is the death of desire, and the death of desire is the silence that comes before the ending. You built her a life and called it love, a good apartment, steady income, a future that didn't involve chaos or risk. You eliminated the variables, you created predictability, you made everything safe, and you genuinely believed that security was the ultimate aphrodisiac. That if you could just make her life comfortable enough, stable enough, secure enough, she would have no reason to leave. This is where your logic failed. Security is for children. It's what they need from their parents. Warmth, predictability, the knowledge that nothing will change without warning. A child needs to know that the rules are consistent, that the world is stable, that there is a safe place to return to. This is developmentally necessary. This is love in its most basic form. But you are not a parent. and she is not a child. What you gave her was domesticity. What she was attracted to was dynamism. These are not the same thing. In fact, they are opposites. One is settling, one is ascending. One is the end of a story. One is the middle of it. You optimized for her comfort, and in doing so, you optimized away her desire. Think about how this actually manifests. You start paying more of the bills so she doesn't have to worry. You plan the weekends so she doesn't have to think. You handle the logistics so her life can be effortless. You eliminate friction. You remove uncertainty. You create a world where nothing unexpected can happen, where everything is handled, where she can just exist. And in existing, she stops becoming alive. This is the comfort trap. It looks like love. It feels like sacrifice. It seems like the ultimate expression of devotion. You are literally removing obstacles from her path. You are literally building her a castle. You are literally saying through your actions, "Rest, I've got this. You don't have to worry about anything." What you're actually saying is, you don't have to be anything other than what you already are. And she hears it, not consciously, but neurologically. She feels the absence of challenge. She notices the disappearance of friction. She recognizes that there is nothing she needs to step up to, nothing she needs to rise to meet, nothing that requires her best self. She has become comfortable. And comfort, in the context of attraction, is the slow death of it. Machiavelli would look at what you've created and say, "You have made yourself the opposite of what she loves." Because what she loved wasn't your stability. It was the energy that came with instability. It was the need to rise to meet you. It was the sense that you were moving towards something that required her to be sharp, engaged, alive. A woman doesn't want a man who makes her life easy. She wants a man who makes her life matter. She wants to feel like she's part of something that demands her. She wants to be challenged to be better because the man she's with is becoming better. She wants to feel the productive friction of growth, not the stagnant comfort of stasis. But you gave her ease instead of elevation. You gave her a soft bed instead of a mountain to climb. You gave her comfort when what she actually craved was a man who was still burning with something. A man who had not yet arrived. A man who was still becoming. You became the harbor, and harbors are where ships go to die slowly, anchored in safety, forgetting what movement feels like. She didn't leave you because you cared too much. She left because you cared in the wrong way. You loved her into stillness, and still people cannot remain. She doesn't know what's wrong. This is the part he will never fully understand. She's not angry, she's not resentful. She hasn't decided to leave. She's just restless. There's a word for what she feels, but she can't quite reach it. It lives in the space between comfort and despair. It whispers to her at 2 a.m. It makes her phone feel heavy in her hand. It's not depression, but it tastes like it. It's not unhappiness, but it feels hollow. It's the sensation of being alive in a life that is no longer alive. She looks at him and feels nothing wrong. He's good, he's reliable, he's kind, he's everything she was supposed to want. And that's precisely the problem. She has everything she was supposed to want, and she is dying inside. The restlessness started small. A subtle feeling during conversations that she'd heard all of this before. The same stories, the same perspectives, the same comfortable conclusions. She found herself finishing his thoughts, not because she knows him so well, but because he stopped generating new ones. He became a loop, a gentle, loving, predictable loop. And loops, no matter how comfortable, are prisons. Then she noticed it in his presence. He stopped surprising her, not because he wasn't trying, but because he had stopped trying. He had arrived. He was content. He would come home from work and they would do the same things. Watch the same shows. Talk about the same topics. Make love in the same way at the same time on the same nights. There was nothing sharp about him anymore. Nothing that made her think. Nothing that made her want to be better because he was better. She started feeling bored by him, and the guilt nearly destroyed her. How could she feel bored by someone so good? What was wrong with her? Was she shallow? Was she ungrateful? She tried to push the feeling away. She tried to be more present, more engaged, more invested. But you cannot manufacture attraction. You cannot decide to desire someone. It either happens or it doesn't. And it had stopped happening. The worst part was that she didn't know why. She couldn't point to a moment. There was no betrayal, no cruelty, no dramatic failure. He had simply stopped. He stopped pushing. He stopped growing. He stopped being the man who was becoming something. He became the man who had become something and was now just maintaining it. And maintenance is the death of momentum. She felt his lack of motion, and her entire nervous system began to look elsewhere. Not because she was being unfaithful, but because her body was searching for what she had lost, the sensation of being alive. She craved the feeling of uncertainty, the thrill of not knowing, the challenge of trying to understand someone, the hunger that comes from being with someone who is still expanding. She didn't want to leave him. She wanted him to come back. But he was already gone. He had retreated into the comfortable life he had built, and she was trapped inside it with him. She started checking her phone more often, not for another man, but for a sign that the world was still moving, that somewhere, something was still becoming, that life was still possible beyond the walls he had built to keep her safe. The safety suffocated her. The comfort was a tomb. And the man she loved was lying down in it, asking her to lay down beside him and rest. But she wasn't tired, she was just slowly disappearing. Machiavelli understood economics before there was a word for it. He watched princes trade in a market as real as any stock exchange. The currency wasn't gold, it was perceived value. A prince who was expanding his territories, building alliances, acquiring new lands, his stock soared. People wanted proximity to him. They competed for his attention. His scarcity made him valuable. His motion made him necessary. But a prince who stopped expanding, whose territories remained fixed, whose influence plateaued, his stock began to fall, not because he was weak, but because he was no longer going anywhere. And humans are attracted to momentum, not position. We are drawn to people who are moving towards something, not people who have already arrived. This is the law of perceived value, and it governs every human relationship. You became a commodity the moment you stopped expanding. A commodity is something that exists in abundance. It's interchangeable. It's replaceable. It's useful, but not rare. She could get reliability from anyone. She could get stability from anyone. She could get kindness from anyone. What she could not get from anyone was the version of you that was still becoming something. That man was rare. That man was valuable. That man had scarcity, but you traded him away for comfort. When you stopped building, stopped pushing, stopped moving toward new territories in your own life, you downgraded yourself from luxury to commodity. You became the safe option, the predictable choice, the man you could settle for when the more exciting prospects didn't work out. You became what women tolerate, not what they pursue. This isn't about being cold or distant. It's about the market reality of human attraction. A man who is expanding his career, his skills, his knowledge, his vision, his influence, has stock that rises. A man who has arrived and is now just maintaining has stock that falls. It doesn't matter how good the maintenance is. It doesn't matter how reliable you are. Reliability is the baseline. It's the price of entry. It's not what makes you valuable. You confused being a good boyfriend with being a valuable man. They are not the same thing. Good boyfriends are everywhere. Valuable men still becoming, still building, still burning with vision, are rare. And she left because you chose to be common when you could have remained extraordinary. This is the market speaking. And markets don't lie. This is where most men make the final mistake. This is where they hand over the kingdom. You felt her slipping, you recognized the distance, and instead of understanding why, instead of returning to the work of becoming, you panicked. You doubled down on the only currency you thought you had left: attention. You became the supplicant, the petitioner, the man begging at the gates of her affection. You brought flowers. You initiated conversations about the relationship. You asked what was wrong. You offered to fix it. You promised to try harder. You demonstrated your devotion through increased effort. You made grand gestures. You reorganized your schedule around her. You became even more available, even more transparent, even more desperate to show her that you cared. And every single move lowered your value further. Machiavelli watched rulers make this exact error. A king loses respect from his court. Panicked, he tries to earn it back through kindness, generosity, and pleading. He gives away gold. He lowers taxes. He demonstrates how much he cares. And as he does, his court watches him weaken. A king who begs is no longer a king. He is a subject begging to be reinstated. The court's disrespect doesn't fade. It deepens, because now they know he will sacrifice anything to be loved. This is the beggar's error. The more you plead for affection, the more you prove you don't deserve it. When you tried to fix the relationship through more attention, you were communicating something crucial. I have lost all other options. I have no other world. My entire world is you. You were proving that her withdrawal had stripped you of power. You were demonstrating that without her, you are nothing. She didn't want a man who needed her that badly. She wanted a man who was indifferent to her leaving because he was too busy building something. A man who would say through his actions, "I would love for you to stay, but I will be fine if you don't, because I have a kingdom to run." Instead, you became a man on his knees. And no one respects a man on his knees. Not even the woman he's kneeling for. The flowers died. The conversations led nowhere. The grand gestures felt hollow, because she could see through every one of them to the desperate man underneath, screaming, "Please don't leave me, please love me again." And the more you screamed, the faster she walked away. There is a moment when you see yourself clearly. Not the image you have constructed, not the story you tell about who you are, but the actual man in the mirror. And that moment is devastating. You're standing there at 6 a.m., getting ready for another day that looks exactly like the last one. Same routine, same job, same conversations waiting for you, same life. And you realize with a clarity that cuts like glass, you have become invisible. Not to her, to yourself. You don't recognize the man looking back. When did you stop reading? When did you stop pursuing ideas that challenged you? When did your ambitions become so small that they fit inside a calendar? You used to have visions that kept you awake at night. Now you can't remember the last time you felt that burn. You used to be building something. Now you're just maintaining what you built and calling it success. She fell in love with a man who was dangerous. Not dangerous to her, but dangerous in the way all expanding people are. unpredictable, driven, becoming something she couldn't quite control or fully understand. That man had edges, he had fire, he had direction, he had a mission that mattered more to him than comfort. That man is gone. You traded him for the safe version, the domesticated version, the version that prioritizes her comfort over his own becoming. You chose peace when you should have chosen war, not with her, but with yourself, with mediocrity, with the gravitational pull of comfort that drags all ambition into the ground. She didn't fall in love with the man you became. She fell in love with the man you stopped being. And when she realized the exchange was permanent, when she understood that you had traded your fire for her safety, she began to leave. The worst part is knowing this was a choice. You didn't lose yourself. You surrendered yourself. You looked at the demanding path of continued growth and chose the easy path of arrival. You looked at the man in the mirror, the man who was still burning, and decided he was too much work. So you killed him. And now you're standing here looking at what's left, a ghost, a placeholder, a man who provided security and nothing else. The kind of man women respect from a distance, the kind of man nobody fights for, the kind of man they simply leave. The shift happens quietly. There is no grand gesture, no dramatic declaration, no conversation where he announces his transformation. He simply stops. Stops calling, stops explaining, stops trying to fix what he now understands cannot be fixed by pleading. He stops looking at his phone, waiting for her message. He stops reorganizing his life around her absence. He returns to work with a ferocity that surprises even himself. The projects he abandoned, the ambitions he shelved, the vision he had surrendered to comfort. He picks them back up like weapons. He begins to build again. Not for her, not to win her back, but because the alternative, continuing to be a ghost, is no longer tolerable. He goes to the gym, but differently now. Not to look good for her, but to feel the burn that reminds him he is still alive. To feel his body respond to demand. To rebuild the physicality of a man who is ascending, not descending. Sweat becomes a language. Pain becomes proof. Most importantly, he stops talking. He stops explaining. He stops defending. He becomes quiet in a way that demands attention rather than invites it. His silence is no longer the silence of a man who has nothing to say. It is the silence of a man who is too busy becoming to waste words on someone who has already left. And something begins to shift in the world around him. People notice, not because he is chasing attention, but because attention cannot ignore motion. The people at work see a man who is building something. The people in his life see someone who is no longer available for their comfort. His time becomes valuable because he is no longer giving it away. His presence becomes rare because he is no longer desperate to provide it. Most importantly, she notices, she feels the change before she understands it. The energy is different. He is not broken. He is not pining. He is not performing love through availability. He has become the man she fell in love with, the one who was building something larger than himself, the one who didn't need her to have a life worth living. And for the first time in months, she wonders what he is doing. The man stood by the window, but he was no longer watching the street for the ghost of her headlights. The silence of the penthouse, once heavy with the suffocating weight of his own stagnation, had transformed into a clean, sharpened quiet. He had stopped asking the shadows for a reason and started demanding growth from his own reflection. He had returned to the gym, to the high-stakes boardrooms, and to the solitary late-night rituals of a man with a vision far larger than a single relationship. The softness that had nearly cost him his soul had been replaced by a cold, revitalized momentum. The narrator leaned against the cold glass, his silhouette a sharp blade against the city's neon glow. "Look at you," he murmured. his voice lacking its previous bite, replaced instead by a grim approval. The prince has returned from the garden to the war room. You finally understand that the safe harbor was never a destination, but a grave. The man didn't turn. He didn't need to. He had realized the final brutal truth of the Machiavellian court. His value was never in what he gave her, but in who he was becoming. Whether she noticed the shift, whether she eventually knocked on that heavy oak door, or vanished forever into the city's hum, had become a secondary concern, a mere footnote in his new history. "You cannot be loved if you cannot be respected," the narrator whispered, a final benediction before fading back into the dark. "And you cannot be respected if you remain still. Love is a passenger. Power is the engine." The man adjusted his cuff, checked his watch, and stepped away from the window. He was moving again, and for the first time in years, he wasn't moving toward her. He was moving toward himself. A man believes love disappeared suddenly, but it didn't. Through a Machiavellian lens, we dissect the silent psychological shifts that kill attraction long before words are spoken. This story follows a protagonist who loses the woman he loves, not because she changed, but because he misunderstood power, scarcity, emotional leverage, and strategic distance. The story reveals that love doesn't die from arguments, it dies from imbalance. And by the end, the protagonist doesn't become bitter. He becomes dangerous, in the calmest way possible.